So here's the thing we got to remember about the fractal universes. When we think about that, we just think it's ridiculous nonsense, and there's no such thing as multiple universes, really, or not in any way that can be meaningful to us. But here's the thing about the fractal universes. What they mean there is not that the reason we think that instinctually and we don't feel like we have a good understanding of what it means to have multiple universes is when we think about the universe, we probably have a picture in our head of planets and stars and solar systems and everything that's not right in front of us, right? But really what they mean by multiverse, it's not a space thing like that. That's displaying a space bias. When we say, okay, well, there must be a bunch of universes next to each other. Like, next to ours, at the end of our universe is another universe. Yada, yada, yada. But what the fractal multiverse means is that when you take... I'm going to try to explain it to you as best I can because I want you to understand it. But I also want you to understand that you might not be able to understand this, and that's okay. But you might, actually. And the reason you might be able to understand this better than most adults can understand it is because, really, it reveals the way that debate constitutes the underlying grammar of the universe. Here's why. If you take any given object, think of an object, it's something that can be named in any way, shape, or form, can be named. So let's say we're talking about this guy, a little comb, a little mustache comb, okay? I might say there's a mustache comb and use it for its literal purpose like this. I might instead say, oh, this is perfect for picking the threads, for getting the threads off of this jacket. It's a thread getter or whatever, you know? I could use it to, if I were lining up a bunch of little threads, I could use it here to make a quilt, that kind of a quilt thing, right? So what is this thing? Well, in terms of physical utility, it's any number of possible things. But beyond that, I could build like an entire metaphysics around this thing. You could say, well, our core value is mustache comb, and all other principles of this metaphysics follow from mustache comb. I could construct a metaphysics that did that. I haven't, wouldn't want to, but I could. I could say, the reason we should prefer mustache comb as a value is because mustaches can cause great deal, whatever the reasons you give. It's not a very strong argument. The reason it's not a very strong argument is because when you repurpose objects like that from their most common usage into a less common usage, then they become weaker and less. The strength of a given argument is going to be tied into how little inconsistency there is between that and the other objects you're affirming. Okay? So look, if you're putting together a good debate case, what that means is that each of the objects you establish, that is to say, a claim is going to be stated, which establishes a warrant or establishes an impact by way of a warrant. Each of those objects needs to be... Each of those objects exists through its own framework and through related frameworks and through opposing frameworks. So, for example, if I'm a hammer, I might have a framework that says we should do blah, blah, blah because that will more effectively get nails hammered into the wall. Or we should do blah, blah, blah because that will protect hammers from yada, yada, yada. So that's going to be my framing on all the impacts is hammer-related framing if I'm a hammer. But the reason it's infinitely fractal is you can parse and link. Those are the two basic jobs of debate. You can parse and link such that any given object can function as any other object in any system if you think about it in terms of a grammar. So basically, argumentation or consistency is kind of like the grammar of reality. Debate is kind of the grammar of reality where you say, this is it's not that there are infinite. It's not that there are infinite ones of these cameras, right? Like we tend to think, oh, well, they're in a multiverse. There are infinite universes just like this, except where this camera exists too in that universe as well. And it's a little bit different. Blah, blah, blah. That's not what it means. What it means is to say there's infinite multiverses is this camera can serve so many different roles. It could play the role of the example in a communication argument I'm making. It could play the role of the bad guy in a let's get back to nature kind of argument I'm playing. You know, so if I say kids these days spend too much time in front of screens, and I'll position this as something bad that precludes something else that we should value more. What this camera is dependent entirely on the fractal that you're in. And this is true of debate as well, right? It's the difference between contention level and framework level stuff. So the fact is we can meta up forever, infinitely. We can meta down infinitely. We can meta in all directions infinitely, and that's why they're infinite metaverses. It has nothing to do with like actual people living. But it's weird when you start thinking about it. It drives you crazy. We're not going to argue it like that. We're going to argue it with just what the card says as we argued it. All right. So I want you to express to me that argument, Edmund. I'm going to be your opposing team. I'm going to be curtailing surveillance. All right.
I'm kind of in a public space right now.
All right. Okay. Then whoever, it doesn't matter. Anoop, you can answer it too, or Connie, you can answer it too. I'm going to ask you guys some questions. I'm going to make some statements. I want you to respond using the metaverse arguments, and then I'm going to ask you some questions about them, or you ask me questions. Let's work through the ideas, basically, is what I'm saying. All right, so here we go. Here's my argument. We should curtail surveillance substantially by regulating the use of drones. We don't want people spying on other people from the sky. What are you going to argue? Somebody.
Repeat that. Sorry, it's really hard to hear you.
Anoop, I want you to answer it with Metaverse. Ready? We should curtail surveillance substantially. Why? Because otherwise we should stop people from flying drones over your house. Otherwise you'll fly a drone next to your window and try to spy on you when you're inside your house.
IDK.
Edmund, can somebody do this at all? I know you guys understood it the other day. Come on. Give me the default approach.
Okay, so essentially you see right now in the status quo about how there's various fractal universes. And what happens is that there's infinite amount of universes, and that you can build any object into any infinite amount of universes. For example, like the camera. The camera can exist in multiple various universes.
And, but I don't want you to argue it like that. Okay? Let's make an order of operations so we understand how the argument works in the argument chain. Upon what is all in reality predicated?
A universe.
What is everything in the universe predicated upon? Observation. Until something gets observed, it is in what?
Not exist.
It is in quantum superposition. Do you not remember any of this? Quantum superposition. Remember? It's fine. Hey guys, listen. Edmund, sorry. It's fine that it takes a couple explanations of this. It's very, very complicated. I'm sorry to be snapping at you. Connie, zip it. Hey.
Connie, I'm taking notes. It's fine. I'll send it to you afterwards.
Connie, pay attention, though, too, if you can, okay? I'm going to go over this quantum stuff again. All right. Everything in the universe is subject to a state of quantum uncertainty, which is called a quantum superposition, until it is observed, at which point it becomes manifest and exists in one state or another. it's not just objects that exist in this state of quantum superposition. So too,
just like anything, right?
everything does, right? So, like, for example, if you remembering that we populate our universe with objects because it's the only way we can process reality. There is no object in reality. Everything is process. But to say that is meaningless. So in order to have meaning, we have to have objects. So we have to separate out things from time. If something
So we have to separate.
well, look, what I mean by that is this is slowly dissolving into compost right now, this phone. Very, very slowly. It's changing, right? It's very, very slowly decomposing. But not it's so slow that it seems like it's static, that it's not changing at all, right? We don't seem like it's changing. So it's easy to afford object status to physical objects in the world that obviously seem to be not changing. From there, because when first human beings said that object has identity was when we named it. If you name an object, it has an identity. If you name it that rock, it has an identity. If you name it this rock, it has an identity. If you name it rock, it has an identity. But if you refer to rocks, or a rock in general, that rock does not have an identity. That is the time object rock, and its identity is as a time object, not as a rock. In this particular metaverse that we're populating and discussing right now. Okay? So, now that we've talked about the rock being a rock and naming it, giving it a specific identity, understand that that rock then, as we indicated, has infinite possible identities, that its identity and what that means will be dictated by the rules of the metaverse that it's in. So if I am in a rock crushing factory, that rock is a valuable commodity that we crush and sell to people. If I'm a farmer, that rock is a horrible nuisance that is preventing me from planting right there and jutting out and making me crash my plow. Okay? We like to think that things have existence and identity outside of ourselves, but they don't. What does happen is that you and I will each have within ourselves enough overlapping truths that reality will seem more than just one person's experience, and instead a shared experience of a static, real thing that's constant or distinct. But in fact, no. Truth is not done by comparing words to reality. Truth is done by comparing words to intention. If I say, I have on a blue hat, and you say, liar, your hat is red. And then I say, no, but it says the word boobies on it. So I meant blue in that fashion. It's talking about dirty stuff. That's another meaning of the word blue, okay? And you go, oh, my bad, I misunderstood. You wouldn't say, no, you were still lying. Right? So this is why we know that truth is not done by comparing the words to the outside world, the reality, but rather comparing the words to the person's intention. So, regardless of that, in this metaverse thing, if your first step is to say, number one, reality becomes manifest when we observe it, or when it is observed. Number two, that surveillance obviously means more observation, not less. Okay? And that, number three, we live in an infinitely fractal multiverse, which means there are infinite other meta-universes in every direction from our own. Now, since we know that those infinite metaverses are in a state of quantum superposition, because they're in a state of quantum superposition until they are observed, it is possible for their existence to never come to be if we don't observe them. Thus might it be.
That would be number 4.
What do you have so far? Read me the other ones.
Number 1, all of the universe is based on observation. Before that, it is in a quantum superposition. Everything is in quantum uncertainty until it is observed in one state or another. When we name stuff, we give an identity. If you refer to it in general, it is a time object on an individual. Truth is done by comparing words to intentions. Number 2, surveillance is observation. Number 3, we live in a fractal universe and there are infinite amounts of universes surrounding our own.
Number 4 would be the capacity for those universes to manifest and thrive depends on our ability to observe more broadly.
Okay.
And then you link it to the transparency K from there. Okay?
Okay.
All right. And so then when you go into transparency K, you say, now, regarding transparency K, we show you that, in fact, what we already know is true about fractal metaverses is that they don't come into existence if we don't observe them. Well, we find the same thing is true with political systems and social systems for human beings, is that we do not achieve the existence of our political metaverses, and therefore we are hamstrung. Right now, probably, if you interrupt to make a joke, make a joke like this, you say, look, why do you think we have Trump right now? It's such a big party in this whole thing. What's going on, D? Yeah, I'm on GoToMeeting. What's going on? Yeah, okay. Delilah, stop. Okay, fine. Keep in touch with me. Call me around. No, Delilah. No, I don't. I want you to keep in touch with me, I said. Okay? That's fine, but you keep in touch with me, and when I text you or call you, answer and text back.
Okay, I will.
All right, bye.
Okay, bye.
All right, so transparency K obviously connects with this fractal universe thing really nicely. You say observation is not only something that they're doing because they want to catch you or bust you or whatever. They are opening up the entire The reason that we are able to critique hierarchy so successfully, the reason, in fact, that we are able to solve at all for any government overreach problems or any sort of problems between individuals at all, is that we are capable of observing the metaverses that contain those solutions. So, for example, right now, opponents, because of my squad's observation habits, we were capable of observing the metaverse that necessarily means we win this round when we observed the infinite fractal metaverse theory and saw how well it linked in with our transparency K. We created the metaverse in which we have already won this tournament, and it's just a matter of walking through and collecting our final trophy. That metaverse exists now. It exists, and it exists thanks to our observation. If you had realized this, you could have observed your own metaverse previously and been winning this tournament. Now, you might say, well, if that's true, then why don't I just envision it now? Well, because what you're forgetting is that observation has an order of operations, and that the primacy of competing claims has to do with recency. So yours is more recent, therefore less established, therefore the less valid claim. Just like with ownership. If I've lived in a home for 40 years and you come over one day and say, no, this is my house, and you haven't purchased it from me, it's really easy for me to establish that you're trying to steal my house. However, if I've never been seen in the neighborhood before and all of a sudden I walk up and say, this is my new house, they spot it, it's a lot harder to establish that claim. Okay? So the point is, you're trying to say is this. We've already observed the futures that have, okay, we've already, in observing, we have, put it this way, okay? The actions we've taken to observe fractal metaverse theory, okay, the actions we've taken to observe fractal metaverse theory have manifested new metaverses which link fractal metaverse theory to transparency and this debate resolution, and link with those things an ability, a predictive and projective mechanism that produces a metaverse in which we have already won this tournament. Now, look, we know right now that it is still at least somewhat in a state of quantum superposition. However, Judge, right now you are observing the movement of that time object from a state of quantum superposition into a state of being realized. It becomes realized when you sign the ballot for us, circle our names, then you enable a whole family, like a whole genus of meta-universes to come into existence. So the question today is, Judge, do you want to make some metaverses, or do you want to kill some metaverses?
Wait, Strauss, but if you realize one meta-universe, or like a genome of meta-universes, wouldn't you be killing off some other ones?
No. What you want to say is this, that the reason, if it gets down to, in fact, we should probably incorporate this into the metaverse thing more carefully, but your point is, ours is metaverse safe soap. We have metaverse safe soap. So you know how they've got that soap that's supposed to be used for clothes that otherwise the colors will bleed because of this hot water, then the colors come out of it or something, but if you use this soap, then it doesn't. All right, well, look. Basically, you're saying the one kind of observation that's not subject to exclusivity, which is to say, you can't say, oh, well, but when we realize this metaverse, we kill all the exclusive metaverses. So when I say, yes, this is definitively a square, then I kill the possibility that it's a circle. Okay?
Alright.
If I say, well, we still haven't quite decided what shape it is yet, it's got qualities of both, then it's still in a quantum superposition. Okay? So, what you want to say is this. As we establish any element in a round, the outcome of the round moves closer and closer from its superposition uncertainty state into a final realized state. Now, we can determine which final realized state it's going to be. We get increasingly more certain of that as objects define that quantum certainty. Okay? So, Judge, when we established in our first contention X, that established for the purposes of this debate round that Y. Okay? That means right now, Judge, if a metaverse is going to exist that includes their victory in this round, the following things are impossible. Puppies, unicorns, rainbows, happiness. Okay?
Wait, can I just...
But
right, this is what I have so far.
Uh-huh. Go.
Alright, because I kind of lost you a while ago. Okay, 1. All of the universe is based on observation. I'll skip the stuff I already told you I had.
Okay.
Okay. Number 5, link back to transparency decay. Number 6, we use the transparency decay that we do not achieve the existence of our political meta-universes with. 7, observation is used not only to catch the government doing stuff. The only reason we can solve any government overreach is that we are capable of observing the meta-universes that have those solutions.
No,
8,
hey.
Metaverse.
No, put it like this. We are capable of observing the contention level universes.
I haven't gotten there yet.
Alright, go ahead. My bad.
Yeah, so number 8 is we created the metaverse that we observed, which links back to our transparency K. Our observation of it won us this tournament. We saw it first, so we have it established more because we observed it first. It's ours, damn it, so you can't steal it. The actions we have taken to observe fractal metaverse theory, which create new universe theory, which links to transparency and the debate resolution. And then I lost you.
Alright, so I want you to add to that notion that my opponents necessarily I hereby establish the following object. I make a claim. Okay, my claim is this: my opponents cannot win the round and concurrently prioritize the value of observation. Okay?
I hereby establish this claim. My opponent cannot win the round and concurrently prioritize the value of observation.
And then you're going to make another statement like that, which goes like this. To curtail requires a reduction
requires a reduction
in observation that exists in the status quo. Ergo, since any other changes to observation would be permeable, he cannot be the affirmative unless his position involves less observation than ours.
Less observation than ours.
Alright, so look. What you want to say is basically you want to prioritize observation even if you think currently that, oh, but it's only the powerful ones who get to do that observational stuff. The fact is, it's not any group that gets to use that observational stuff. It's individuals. And individuals behave as they will, as Edward Snowden did. The more observation, what saved us, what allowed us to know that the surveillance program was going on? What gave birth to these metaverses where we're factoring in all these various factors?
Observation.
Correct. By whom? Everyone.
Edward Snowden?
Yeah, everyone via Edward Snowden. By everyone because Edward Snowden made it visible to everyone, right? Now, the alternative has those metaverses never existing because that information never existed. We didn't talk about these complicated issues. We didn't have discourse about who should be watching whom and why, what it meant, prior to the NSA being observing us. And then we have made countless, as a people, as a nation, we have made hundreds of millions and billions of observations since then about the NSA, about surveillance, about the role of observation. In other words, the NSA trying to watch us in secret opened up whole packages of universes, you know? See what I'm saying? Like, that most of us as individuals wouldn't be considering these arguments if except for the Edward Snowden thing, right? You say, all my opponents need to do is to prove that none of the things they are pointing out in this round have ever been observed. You say, look, all of my opponents' arguments supervene upon observation. They claim they don't value observation, but when they destroy it, they destroy themselves. Their entire reality is comprised of objects constructed from their own observations. See what I'm saying? It's hard, I know.
So basically your opponents can only win the round if they don't use any evidence.
Well, you say, I believe we should prioritize the value of observation because this thing right here that we're doing has more solvency than any specific plan. So, to the extent that, okay, maybe the surveillance did harm to somebody. Maybe, I don't know if it did or not, right? But what we also know for sure is that now these metaverses are alive and they inform their neighbor verses. So while maybe or maybe not Snowden's revelation causes massive structural changes in the government or what it does or whatever, but what it definitely does is cause people to be more, to include that metaverse in their calculus when making analogous reasonings. So now if somebody says to me, like, why are you filming me? I'm much more likely to say, well, listen, you're being filmed all the time, not only by private companies and when you go to any store, but also by the government, potentially. And any public space where the government is active, they're going to have surveillance. And why would you feel less threatened by a private citizen than by the government? Going to that whole spiel, we have a shared frame of reference. Now when somebody hears the words NSA, they think secret spy group who's spying on us, right? They didn't used to think, used to be people that never even heard of the NSA.
Right.
That change is real, distinct, and not going anywhere. Nobody's going to forget about the NSA now either, right? The NSA is not going to be able to operate its bullshit in secret very much because people are looking for reasons to call them out on it. So, what you want to point out as far as the observation goes to your opponent's case is we have to value observation because in the same way that we have to value life. Because it's even more valuable. If one of the debaters in this room had tragically died a week before Nats, that debater would be able to get another partner and we could still debate this round. But my opponents wouldn't be able to say a single damn word were it not for observation. Had they never observed any of the time objects created about this subject of surveillance, they'd have no case. Now they want to destroy, turn around, and bite the hand that is feeding them. They want to say concurrently, we should win this round because we made better observations and created better metaverses. But then when we point out to them that no, their observations are observations designed to kill metaverses, designed to curtail observation, designed to prevent others from gaining knowledge and learning how to lose gracefully, as my opponents are going to do right now. You know, guys, if it weren't for observation, you would not be able to lose graciously and gracefully like you are going to do today. You'd just be utterly embarrassed. But your observations have allowed you to put up a good fight in this round. Unfortunately, because your entire case is predicated on them, that means we ought to value them highly. And since we're valuing them more highly than your impacts, and we have the metaverse case and you don't, you lose.
Okay.
Now look, you're not counting on just the metaverse case to win this, obviously. We're covering it right now in more detail because I know it's complicated. I want to make sure you guys understand how to run it. If you want to... Oh, is that her dad back there? I don't know what I'm saying. Now I'm distracted. Something about poop, I think. What was I saying?
You're talking about how like your opponents can lose graciously.
Okay, right.
And you're like, but don't rely only on the.
Yeah, okay. So, hey, Anoop, I'm gonna be you guys are gonna team up to run fractal universes on me, okay? Here's my basic app point. It's very simple. We should curtail surveillance because we gotta stop the drones. That's how we're gonna do it. That's our plan. We're gonna stop the drones because people will fly and they're gonna try to peek in your window and look at you. And that's not good. So we're gonna stop that. Okay? Now, I've got a bunch of impacts, and I've got a bunch of solvency stuff, and I got a bunch of yada, yada, yada. But it's a pretty straightforward case. Now, let's pretend you've already done the 1 in C and established the fractal universe stuff, and it's the cross. And I'm asking you about it, and you can ask me how my case... You guys are going to talk to me, try to get me to budge somewhere, okay? All right, so can I ask you about your fractal universe thing? Are you saying that when any kind of observation is done, a whole universe is created?
Essentially, yes.
But not just one, right? Sheaves upon sheaves of them.
Multiple universes.
How does that happen? How is it that when the NSA spies on you that a universe is created? Can you explain that?
Okay, so here's how it works. Because you see, before something is observed in any way, that thing is in a state of quantum superpositioning until it is observed. It is finally realized into reality. Because what we do is not reality until someone else sees us doing it.
Okay, I want you also to point out this. Reality only works in people. So in other words, the only way that reality plays is on a bunch of individual TV screens inside your heads. Everybody gets their own reality, okay? My opponents have no reality that is shared between them except that's what they have converted into concrete objects that are representative of useful communications. But, my opponent, the first speakers, let's say Joe here. Joe's your first speaker opponent. You go, Joe talks about reality as though we shared a reality. What Joe does not seem to understand is that when he talks about a drone having the following impact, yada, 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 all he is doing is saying, here is the framework to which I am a slave, and here is the framework that is constraining my ability to see the true depth of this topic. Okay? If I say drones are bad because they're going to peep in on your window, you say there is no reason to vote for any case that is driven by a privacy as a primary value framework, and that's really what this is. And here's why you shouldn't prioritize it, because it is inconsistent with the majority of multiverses. And that's what it boils down to. I might have one framework in which I think, as a general rule, that interrupting people is bad because it's rude. I might have another framework that says interrupting people is good because if you don't interrupt them, you'll probably forget and you won't make the point, and they need to be interrupted because whatever it is you want to say is probably more important. Neither of those is true 100% of the time, and they can even both be concurrently true, and I have to prioritize one or the other, okay? So in that case, you're looking at a behavior that exists as a good guy, a hero in one multiverse, in one metaverse, and a villain in another metaverse, okay? And can you have two things like that within your own reality that are contradictory and yet concurrent? Yeah, you can, because time objects aren't subject to the same kind of law of non-contradiction as space objects are, okay? So time objects' law of non-contradiction, it doesn't work like that. It is instead a turn-based ecosystem in which each statement or word or progression of ideas, each step in the progression of ideas changes the ecosystem as a whole. So, for example, if I say that drones have the side effect of improving the eye-to-hand coordination of people who fly them. Well, that's an advertising thing to put on an advertisement to sell drones if you're a drone salesman. But if you're in debate, it's an advantage you could add on to there, or you'd want to use it as a disad. Probably you say, if we allow people to get drones, they're going to become so dexterous and so good in their eye-to-hand coordination that there will be endless street fights resulting in murders everywhere. You know, you want to come up with some nonsense like that, right? So the point is that warrant, that impact, that whatever, that statement, that fact about reality, observation, what it is and what it does is entirely dependent on what metaverse you are framing it through. Okay? Yeah, I know their aim's a lot better after they've been practicing their drone flying. All right, questions? I'm tired of talking. I'm tired in general. I'm probably going to say let's call it a night here pretty quick, but I want to hear any questions you have, and I try to give short answers if you ask me questions.
Opponents from the nuclear war or something could be like, if we don't observe it, it doesn't exist. No, but you see, we do observe it because, like, the effects of it affect us, so therefore we observe.
No, the idea is this, guys. The reason things can surprise you, which would seem to be counterindicated by the notion that they have to be observed to exist, is that somebody else is observing it, so it exists in their reality. Now, because it exists in their reality, and because they've turned it into a time object in their reality, then that makes it happen in the outside world, because everyone's reality has equal access to the reality manifestation machine called time-space. So anyway, go ahead.
Judge, what we see here is our opponent's lack of feeling and compassion for the rest of society. They do not care about the suffering of the rest of society as long as they do not observe it. Judge, we cannot vote for these heartless monsters.
Yeah, I'd say go, more questions. Question me.
What if people are just like, why does this? How does destroying meta universes even matter?
You say, all right, if they ask you that question, like, why does it even matter if we destroy meta universes? You say,
all right, you were one part of quantum superpositioning.
you say, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you do it in a way that if you do it in a way that produces more observation. If as long as you promote observation, even the destruction of metaverses will produce a net gain in total metaverses. The only way you can reduce the number of metaverses is to use violence. The only metaverse destroying thing is violence. What my opponents prescribe here is violence. They're saying, let's force people to stop watching. And you say, look, remember the analogy point too, the as below, as above, as in the middle, okay? Remember, Judge, all laws in the metaverses have their metaphysical equivalent in each of the infinite universes at every level of scale and scope and size as well. So, do you see what that means?
Okay, so
Look, don't get too bogged down in it, but just say this. We already know that X happens in this model. Therefore, there is an analogous corollary in every model, in every metaverse, in every understanding of everything. There will be a corollary. We will be able to link. That's all it means. Yes, I can link that. Can you link how a passionate love of lemons links to lemons are bad? Well, yeah, somehow, sure. Can you link any two things if you just spend all the time doing it? Of course you can. Infinite linkability is what the meta universes are made up of. It says if I can think of this existing in this relationship with something else, then I can make something else reflect that same relationship in some other metaverse. I'll find a way that relationship will be analogous.
okay, I get it. Okay.
All right.
Okay, so I have this question. This is because my dad doesn't really like this argument, so he's questioning this. And he's just like, okay, so let me give you this example here. Alright? So there's this person stranded on an island away from all of society. Right? But like that person exists, but he's not being confirmed. Does that mean he doesn't exist? That's like the tree.
Well, how do you know he exists?
I mean, well, what I said was that, like, okay, so first of all, you mentioning it makes him exist. Second of all, how the people who, like, how he got there, people knew him before, so he existed that way. And, like, stuff like that.
Well, okay, the answer is this. First of all, look.
Like,
if you say, we know he's on the island, right? If you say we know he's on the island, like right now, Edmund, you are alive. I know you're alive because I'm observing you. Now, as soon as we finish this conversation, I'm going to operate on the assumption that you're still alive until the next time I see you. But really, in my reality, you have returned to a quantum superposition. You are neither alive nor dead until I see you again, but I operate on the assumption that you're still alive. But in my reality, you aren't necessarily, and in fact, we can prove that because if I say, okay, here's everybody I know, now let me keep myself away from knowing them for a full year, and I add enough people in there, somebody will be dead at the end of that year, and I won't have known about it. And so, as a consequence, in my mind, in my reality, that person, all my metaverses continue functioning as though that object to which I ascribe objecthood, which is to say, I ascribe it a status of static. In other words, I give it an identity as a thing, not as a process. And so, when you get something, an identity as a thing, not as a process, you're saying, here, if this thing were static, as it appears that it is, then it would be a thing with a name that we call it. It's not static as it appears to be. It's actually a process. It's actually it has infinite identities, right? Infinite identities and infinite processes, provided those processes are observed and those identities become manifest. All right, guys. That's it for me today. I am done. I had a rough 1 to 4 period class. 9 to 12 was all right, but then that 5 to 7 class was awful, and I'm losing my voice, and I'm just done. I'm gonna call it a night. All right. It's 9:18. If you
Okay, bye.
if you guys want to work on stuff for the next 45 minutes, do it. What I would suggest you do, though, if you're going to do any work on this metaverse shit, what you want to do is make sure you have all the components of that hexagon put in place. Each of those things we've gone over. Each of the warrants in the metaverse argument, each of the warrants of transparency K. They all fit together. Build it so it's a nice, like, super Rubik's Cube-y kind of a thing. All right? I'm going to leave. I'm going to make you the boss here, the organizer, Edmund.
Oh, yeah.
All right, goodbye.